Welcome back to the Education System Reboot channel. I wanted to share a thought today. There's a story behind it and about where it came from, which I think is actually kind of humorous in that illustrates the current state of education. And then hopefully this will tie in. But so the title is called The Broken Windows Theory. And so let me start first by, if for those who don't know, and again, please, if you are very knowledgeable of it, I'm just giving a brief overview. I don't know all the details, but it's something that I have always had in the back of my mind. But basically, according to that, it was a theory that was used as a metaphor. I'm reading this actually off of something for disorder within neighborhoods. The theory links disorder and incivility within a community to subsequent occurrences of serious crime. And basically, what it really says is that the small things, without like from a prosecution slash criminal justice perspective, is if you let the small things slide, they devolve into bigger things. And so, keep that in mind as I go through this story. So I don't remember exactly, probably 4 or 5 days ago, I was in my class teaching my music exploration class, and it's a class designed to allow students to kind of just get a brief overview of a lot of different musical skills. We were doing a keyboard unit, which in our case means piano and xylophone and marimba and those type of instruments. And I have these little paper representations of a keyboard that are kind of on, you might call it card stock, but anyway, I have about 12 of them or something. And so I allow kids to, if they participate however they want, but you can use those if you don't want to risk playing the wrong things. And so there was a couple kids in the back. This one kid was starting to mess with one and bending. I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" It's like, "Come on, like you need to respect the stuff." And I thought, I was like, "What are you doing?" And gave like a little speech. I was like, "Come on, respect the stuff." And then I kid you not, 5 minutes later, this other girl literally bent one, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" And I went off on kind of a big rant speech, whatever you want to call it. But in the middle of it, all I could think of is like, man, they can't handle the small things. And then it went to this whole like, wait, that's the perfect metaphor of what I remember in the broken windows theory. So to kind of tie it into that, from what I remember and understand, New York City, where this theory was implemented at its best example, was in New York City in the early 90s. From what I remember as a kid, and the news is that New York City back in the 80s was a terrible place to live. Lots of crime, probably similar to where it is now. But someone, and again, I could be more specific if I read the article or but they implemented this broken windows theory. And the idea was, we're going to prosecute the small stuff consistently and heavily, and we're going to fix it from the beginning, or from the smallest thing. Because what they were saying is, the crime was a byproduct of all these little things that they'd let slide. So it's like a slippery slope idea, and it starts to snowball. And again, this is where, when you have a conversation with people that think differently, they might come to a different conclusion. But for me, in my musical background, all this stuff, it's like, I cannot ignore the clear correlation between this idea of the little things and letting them go for too long and becoming big things, right? The slippery slope. So I talked in the speech that I gave the kids, I was literally talking about how if you can't do the little things, you can't do the big things. And then I said, "Have you heard of the broken windows theory?" And I kind of went through this for them. And I talked about the example of New York City. And again, I don't have all the stats, someone probably knows it, but I'm just saying, like, from what I understand and remember, that over the course of a few years, New York City became one of the safest big cities in America, if not the. And the idea is, and to me, how do I say this without sounding condescending? To me, it's just completely logical. Like, I can't see how someone cannot understand that if you keep letting the small things go, that there's going to be a big long-term catastrophic result. But when I look at our students, right, I see students who have been enabled, who have been basically learned helplessness. I see students who have no idea how to do all the little things well in their life. Like, I mean, and it might seem so simple now with kids today, but like, just sitting still, just bringing their stuff to class, just having the materials they need. And if you want to go to the next level, it's like understanding how to take notes, understanding how to stay organized, having a calendar. But if you think about it, all of those little things are what make successful adults. And so all of this is to say, I wonder if as an education system, we've completely lost sight of the little things. Now, kind of go off a small tangent. Hopefully I won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but now I will fully admit part of that is this liability issue of what schools have to do to protect themselves, and this idea of, for if one person feels like they've been discriminated against, whatever, we get into this slippery slope idea. But it's the same thing. It's the little things, like if we can't hold kids accountable to the behavior because of fear of being sued for things like that, like how are we going to actually teach our kids? So anyway, to bring it all back, I just couldn't help but notice a huge correlation between what I remember about the broken windows theory in political ideas and how it seems to be similar to what we're struggling with in education. And again, I will be the first to admit that my small district that I live in might be seeing some of these things worse than others, but I have friends that work in other districts. My father works in a bigger district. And the reality is I hear similar things. And then you add COVID on top of that, I'm sure it got exacerbated. But point, I guess I would say, is if we're going to change, if we're going to improve what we're trying to do for kids, we have to hold them accountable to the small things. And, you know, I wouldn't go so far as to say we have to have a zero tolerance or anything like that. No, but we have to, we should try to get on a more consistent messaging in terms of how things are, of expectations, and then and I would say simplify the expectations and then hold them accountable no matter what. Just period. Like no matter what. I mean, anytime, like nope, that's not right. Nope. And you just keep holding them accountable. But anyway, and so like I said, it worked in New York. I know, if I read a little bit, I know you could argue then that there was, it might affect other people disproportionately, and there's a whole thing. I mean, that's a debate you could have, but I think it would be naive to think that the little things don't matter, and that the little things grow into the big things really quickly. So that would be my summary of this video. So with that being said, as always, consistent effort over time equals success.